Hello, everyone. Welcome to Community Conversations. I am so glad to have a pretty good audience here today. Considering how beautiful it is outside, I want to thank you all for taking some time from your busy soaking up vitamin D schedule to be here for our very special event here. So as part of our series on technology and change, Alex Bream suggested that maybe we would want to have the LCC Fighting Smelt come in and give a debate. So I was very happy to have that happen. So I'm going to introduce Alex, and then Alex is going to introduce the team and talk a little bit more about what we are doing today. So Alex Bream teaches communication studies and coaches the LCC Fighting Smelt debate team. For over 50 years, Lower Columbia College has had a strong and successful speech and debate team. We take pride in our legacy and the generations of leaders who have come from our program. Currently, LCC Speech and Debate is a gold medal community college program in the Northwest Forensics Conference, representing Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Utah, and Alaska. So please welcome, at first, Alex Bream.
All right. Thanks so much, Courtney. I want to say thank you to everybody who's here. We actually had a team showcase in the same room about a week ago, and I think we have twice as many people here today. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Debate is interesting. Debate is a lot more interesting when people are listening to it. So really sincerely thankful for everyone here. Thankful to everyone who gave incentives for people to be here. I know we have a lot of faculty who are either not in their classes right now, but they're with their class here, or people who have offered a little bit of an incentive. So thank you, everybody. I do want to talk more about the team. As Courtney mentioned, I want to really hype up our 4 debaters who are going to be participating today. But before we do that, I have a task for all of you. We want today's debate to be interactive. And what that's going to look like is before the debate happens, we're going to ask you how you feel about the topic that we're going to be debating. And then after the debate is over, we're going to ask you the same question just to see if the debaters have changed any opinion. So let me just talk through how that's going to work. Our resolution today is, on balance, social media promotes democratic values. That phrase may or may not make a whole lot of sense to you right now. I hope it will make more sense as the debate goes along. But for now, what I'm going to ask is for everyone to weigh in based on what they think now. The way you're going to do that is we're using a platform called Poll Everywhere. There is an option to vote on a website or to vote by text. Do whatever seems easier to you. I'll actually skip ahead to the end. If you want to just go to the website, it is pollev.com/LCC-smelt294. If you land on that page, it's really straightforward. You can just pick the option that you agree with. If you don't have access to the internet or would rather just do this by text, you can text LCC-smelt294 to the number 37607. Follow that text up with a second text that corresponds to your vote. So A means yes, I do think social media promotes democratic values. B is no. C is I am unsure. So take your time to do this. Really, we're just trying to capture where our audience stands before the debate happens. We'll ask the same question again later on once you've heard a little bit of discourse. So while y'all are working on that, I'm just going to quickly confirm that votes are coming in. They are coming in. Lovely, you're doing it right. Let me talk a little bit about our team. Hope it's okay for me to take this away. I'm going to do it. As Courtney already mentioned, we have a long, beautiful tradition of speech and debate here at Lower Columbia College that dates back perhaps even earlier than the 1960s. On his way out the door, our former president, Chris Bailey, showed me a framed cutting from a student newspaper from the 1930s that alluded to a debate team. So we've been doing debate here for a long time at LCC, and really in the modern era, we consider this 1968 to present. A lot of that time was with our legendary coach Mike Dugas and our current team. We really view ourselves as stewards of this long legacy and this beautiful program. Just talking about this year, I could brag about this team so much and for so long, but we have a time constraint, so I'm just going to tell you some of the top line items. One of the things we're really proud of, we were named a Northwest Forensics Conference gold medal program. We were debate sweepstakes champions. I guess the short version of that is among all the community colleges in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Utah, and Alaska. Theoretically, we are the best debate community college, and we're really proud of that. Yeah, clap for these great people. We also we're very pleased to come home from Phi Community College Nationals with 2 bronze medals in IPDA debate. You're going to see both of those bronze medalists in today's debate. Anytime you can win anything on the national stage is really impressive, and to have 2 people on the same team come back with the same award is really, really cool. So I want to talk a little bit about our current team, not just the 4 debaters you're going to see today, because the 4 debaters you see today are the tip of the iceberg. Our team in total this year served 24 students, and a really diverse array of students with different life experiences, with different motives for participating in this activity. Of those 24 students, 14 actually competed at least once. And I like to highlight both of those numbers because there are some people who have interest in debate, have interest in public speaking, who attend some of our club meetings and then don't necessarily stick around and do the competitive thing, but a majority actually do. We had 14 different students compete at least one tournament, and then 8 of those people represented LCC at Phi Pi Nationals. What I think is so beautiful about that group of 14 people is 4 were international students, 4 were running start students. 3 were students who we might consider traditional, those students who come right out of high school and then go to college. And then 3 would be considered non-traditional or part-time. So I think it's just this beautiful cross-section of all of the students that we serve here at LCC. And this year's team really proved that no matter what type of student you are, you can do debate and you can do debate well. Just a couple more stats I'm going to share, and then I'm going to start introducing our debaters. I really like to highlight the work. We're going to see the final product, but we don't always get to see in these exhibition events the process. So what I did was I went through and I counted up how much competitive debate our team has done this entire season. And if my counting is correct, LCC students participated in 337 competitive rounds of debate in this academic year. That equates to over 180 hours of actual debate time. That doesn't include prep time, practice time, travel time, time spent going over feedback and ballots. And so basically, if you were to add that all up, it is like an entire week, 7 days of consecutive debating with no sleep. We don't sleep a lot. Really, what I want to really impress upon everyone is, wow, what an incredible amount of work these people put in to get to the point where they are today. Today is just one example of what they've been doing really the entire year. So with that out of the way, let's make it not about me and more about our competitors. We are going to have an affirmative and a negative side in competition. If this were an actual round of competition, the students don't get to choose whether on the affirmative team or on the negative side. It's assigned to them. And so in the spirit of competition, I just chose for our debaters today who is going to be affirmative and who is going to be negative. That does often leave people defending positions that they don't necessarily agree with. So I'll be interested to ask our debaters after the round today how they actually felt about the side that they were defending. Let's talk a little bit about who our debaters are. I want to start by talking about the first speaker you'll hear from today. That is Charlotte Curry. Charlotte joined our team at the ripe age of 15 human years old, and had success really quickly. She figured this event out quite promptly. That was last year. She's grown a lot in the last 2 seasons, has led by example as our team captain. This season, she won multiple tournaments, really was on a tear in January and February. Ultimately, she holds a silver and a bronze award from Phi Pi Nationals. Is just a really incredible team leader and team member. We're super sad to be losing her. She's going to do some incredible things at University of Washington next year. Also rounding out the affirmative side is Seamus Mahoney. Seamus is a legacy. I think this is really cool. As I mentioned, we have a long legacy within our team. Seamus comes from a family of Smelt and had a parent and a sibling who were on our team, one of whom is in the room. Hey, Molly. Seamus competed in 6 different categories this year, had some amount of success in all of them. Seamus is so smart, so thoughtful, and is really going to be an amazing leader on our team next year. Let's talk about the negation, the negative team. Attila is our sole representative from that international squad this year. He is a German student from the CBYX program, really proved this season that you can do this event at a high level, even if you're not doing it in your native language. He advanced to final rounds 5 times in 3 different events. Debate, I think, is probably one of his favorite categories, but he's equally strong in extemporaneous speaking and persuasive speaking. He was a bronze medalist in IPDA debate. I didn't actually ask you all. I think the reason you bite awards is to see if it's real gold, but if you get a bronze award, it's not real gold no matter what. So I don't know if they were tasty medals, but nice job. Let's talk about Ada. Ada is a longtime team leader, has been a really just amazing, stable presence on our team for the past 3 years. I think this might be her last official round as a Smelt, which is really bittersweet because Ada has actually participated in 115 competitive rounds in her career at LCC, spanning the last 3 years. She's not usually Attila's debate partner, but Attila needed a partner today, so we're really thankful that she stepped in. Holistically, I think we're going to see a lot of great debate experience. We're also going to showcase a lot of different styles of debate. So with that, I'm just going to very briefly share what our results of that initial poll were before the debate starts, and then I will turn it over to Charlotte. Based on everyone who responded to the poll, 47% of people are currently voting yes. 32% are no, and 21% are not sure. So we will see if there is any movement. Without further ado, Charlotte Curry.
Hi, everyone. So for this first speech, it's going to be about 5 minutes. It's just kind of giving a preview of what the affirmative side is today, and then we're going to go into some cross-examination and some other speeches down the line. So with that, I will start my time now. As this is my first time speaking, I first want to say thank you for you all for being here today. I think this is going to be a great round. I, of course, stand in firm affirmation of today's resolution. On balance, social media promotes democratic values. Now onto some resolution analysis. What does this actually mean? We're going to be weighing this as a fact round off of the most and best quality evidence. Some definitions for today is democratic values, according to the United Nations, are the core values of democratic governance, including freedom, respect for diversity and human rights, truth, justice, and the principle of holding periodic and genuine elections. And social media means websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. So at the end of today's debate, you should vote A if social media platforms do more to empower democratic values and the people's ability to govern themselves than to hinder it. And you should vote B if social media has and will continue to have more of a damaging impact on the values of people to self-govern than anything done to benefit democracy. And whoever best upholds their burden should win this debate. Moving on to my contention 1, the first reason why you should be voting A today. Subpoint A here is of contention 1, promoting democracy. Subpoint A here is of perception. First off, the perception of the majority of people is that it actually does do this. According to a Pew Research article of 2022, 25,000 people were surveyed internationally, so this is not just the US, and 62%, so a majority of people say that social media has been more of a good thing for democracy. The majority of people across the world believe this to be true, so it's not surprising that it actually is. Bringing me to my subpoint B of action. In action, it actually supports these things as well. Published in the 2020 Published in 2020 in the peer-reviewed Journal of Policy Modeling, there is a study looking at 125 different countries, and they find that there is a very strong correlation between social media reach and democracy. So objectively, not just people think that this happens, but actually when there is more social media reach, there is better democracy. It works to uphold democracy better, which brings me to my contention 2 of how this happens. Less gatekeeping, more girl bossing. Social media gives access to information to people regardless of their economic or any other personal status. Supporting the values of equality and the principle of upholding periodic and genuine elections that we talked about earlier. Subpoint A here is of self-advocacy. You can really do anything, and you have the ability to do anything regardless of who you are. You can use platforms like LinkedIn to advertise yourself and your small business for minimal cost, and you can let legislators and the general public know your opinions. Going back to that same Pew Research article from before, 64% of people internationally say that is an effective way to make elected officials pay attention to issues. 77% say that it is effective in raising awareness for political and social issues, and 73% say that it helps them stay more informed about current events. So objectively, this is helping people not only let other people know their opinions, but understand things about the current world as well, which leads me to my subpoint B of the new news. Mass media, according to the Media Well of 2022, is crucial to representative democracy. But more than 30% of Americans believe that national traditional news sites tries to mislead or persuade the public, according to Statica of January 2024. We need an alternative, and social media is that alternative. Social media allows information to spread much quicker to people. For examples like traffic or school shootings can get out there much faster, which promotes this idea of upholding the truth, which is crucial to democracy. And according to Pew Research of November 2023, 30% of Americans use social media as their way of getting the news. This is the way that people stay connected to the world. This is how they are able to understand what is happening, leading to those elections and knowing what they're actually voting for. Bringing me to my next contention of exposure. When on social media, you are exposed to things that you might not see within your family or your geographic region. It opens you up to the wider world around you, which supports the democratic value of respect for diversity. But it does more than just that. If you're within an abusive family, social media can help you realize something is wrong by seeing what the status quo is around the world and allow you to get outside support. If you're in a bad country, you can hear about other nations and understand what specifically is going on and why is it different. But why is that important? Propaganda and attempts to suppress people are less successful overall, supporting the democratic values of truth and freedom. People are more aware and they have the ability to create more action. So at the end of this round today, you should vote A, that on balance, social media promotes freedom, respect for diversity and human rights, truth, justice, and the principle of upholding periodic and genuine elections. Thank you, and I'm open to cross-examination.
Thank you. I can stay here. Yeah, thanks.
Test. Awesome. Okay, so what will happen now is I'm gonna have the time for 2 minutes to ask Charlotte questions about her great speech. So with that, I'm gonna start right now. Thanks for that great speech, Charlotte. I really enjoyed it. However, I do have a few questions. First one would be, since you talked about a lot of benefits of social media in correlation with democracy, is social media or are social media users immune to propaganda?
No, they are not immune, but they are more able to recognize it and kind of realize that it's wrong.
With the recognition, are they doing anything against it? And what would that be? What are social media platforms doing against misinformation and propaganda?
Social media platforms themselves aren't doing very much, but the people are able to actually release statements against it, which they aren't really allowed to do in the outside world unless you have resources behind you, like a social status or economic backing.
In comparison to traditional media outlets like TV stations, news, where do you see this significant benefit or like this specific benefit in social media?
Yeah, so we see that 30% of Americans believe that national traditional news tries to mislead or persuade the public, and that's not the case for social media. And social media also allows for information to be spread much quicker, so it is a better alternative.
Do we agree that with the times we live in of uncertainty in terms of cybersecurity, etc., there is a significant higher risk of people getting misinformed, especially through social media?
Yeah, there is a high risk, but I don't know if there is a higher risk.
Okay. Would you say that there is a higher risk in comparison to traditional media?
I would not say that.
are you aware of the 2016 elections and the Russian influence through bots, especially online?
I am aware of that, but I think that misinformation can also be spread through traditional news sites as well. And we've seen that to be the case in the past as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That was great. Thanks. Will try my best. Yeah, so I'm about to give a 5-minute speech, just like Charlotte did. And oh, sorry, 6. Yes. And what will happen is I'm going over our own case, showing you a few other lenses, which will help you make that decision for the negation side today. And after that, we are going through the refutation part, which is also a very interesting part, because there, for the first time, really, in today's debate, there will be some clash. Of course, friendly, respectful, as always. Okay, starting off. Since this is my first opportunity to speak, I would also like to say thanks to the audience. It's incredible, and I'm very, just happy to see all of you today. And I wish everyone a good round. Starting off with the definitions and the case, we agree that the affirmation provided the definitions, and we will go with those today, as we see no reason to give other definitions. So this is just easy and clear. So to better understand it, we totally have to prove the opposite of the affirmation and show that social media does not promote the core of democratic values. So it is our job today to show the opposite of what the team affirmation just did. Starting off with our first lens, we will look through something very specific called the algorithms. Social media companies have algorithms that promote radicalization to both sides of this political spectrum, to the left side and to the right side. This comes from NPR of July 2023. Studies found that liberals and conservatives live in their own political news bubbles, more so than elsewhere online. And this shows that social media isn't providing the necessary discourse needed for democratic change. It is only further dividing us. This is also backed up by PEW research. And simply, the one headline that shocked me the most was that for the first time in 50 years, we have never been more divided. And maybe you all can agree to that, that if there's one thing happening, it's really the dividing process. We are not talking with liberals if we are conservative, and we are not talking with conservatives if we are liberals, and especially not online. This is a big point. I'm myself politically quite engaged in Germany, and one thing I really enjoyed is going to the streets during elections in 2021 and talking to people from all different sides of society. But when I go online, I really only see bubbles being bigger and bigger, people only being in certain positions. Media Matters of October 2021 says that TikTok's For You page algorithm is leading users down far into a right rabbit hole. And by that, I don't mean that it's only about Trump or other people who are considered as right. This is not about solely the political side. This is about what it means to be right. And what it means to have this right view is a lack of diversity. And we earlier heard that diversity, respect, and freedom is something that is in core democratic. So with this algorithm, we see that actually lack of diversity is getting promoted on social media. On TikTok, if I'm a conservative, I don't get videos published from liberals. And this wouldn't make sense, because at the end of the day, if I see what my beliefs are, I stay on the app. And if I stay on the app generates more money. Because, and this leads us into our second contention or lens, the perception versus reality. Social media does operate with a perception of upholding democratic value. And maybe there are guidelines, like we earlier heard in my questioning, there are some guidelines. But the truth is, profit is the key motivation from those companies. It is not to uphold democracy or strengthen it, even though they might say that. It is about profit. Meta, Snapchat, and TikTok want to make money. In reality, it is profit-driven and shareholder-driven. The National Library of Medicine from February 27 says that the perception of equalizing force for disenfranchised individuals without a voice may seem like a good thing, but in reality, it has evolved into a platform for fake news. And I think fake news, it rings a bell when we're in America and hear about fake news. But it's not only America, also Germany struggles with that. Going on to the refutation part. So to summarize it, we heard that promoting democracy is a good thing and social media is doing that. We also heard that there is less gatekeeping and more girl bossing. And the third thing was less exposure. I want to start with the last one, less the show must go on. Less exposure. So actually we see with hate being centered on social media, there is more exposure to hate. Not less exposure, but more exposure because people are feeling more confident, not in real life approaching people and just hating them, but online in their safe space, in their apartments or at work, we see that people are actually more motivated to commit hate crimes online. This is something that the affirmation side didn't touch on. We solely looked through a bubble of social media being simply a good for mankind, but the opposite and the damages have been untouched in their speech. Promoting democracy. We also heard that the reach is better because quickly things just go on quickly to the mass. And that is right. If I post something in minutes, people will see it. And if I have a huge audience like Elon Musk, a lot of people will see it. And if I buy a social media platform, even more people will see it. And I'm in power of what they see. But this isn't something good. It's actually bad. And with that, I end my speech.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay? Sounds good. I'll go ahead and start the cross-six timer now. All right, that was a great speech. I just have a couple of questions. Okay. So starting off, my first question is, do you think that democracy is profitable?
Define profitable for who?
Do you think if social media promoted democracy, it would be profitable to them?
It depends on for what party, for democracy itself, for governments, for social media.
Well, do you think social media promoting democratic values would lead to them having increased profit?
If that's what the shareholders say, then sure, they can try to do that.
Okay. Do you think the shareholders would say that?
No,
Why not?
because it wouldn't bring the most profit.
Why not?
Because mass surveillance brings more profit.
Would you choose to use a social media site that promotes democratic values or one that doesn't?
I would do it if it benefits my social media way of using it.
Okay. Can you go ahead and restate the taglines for your contentions real quick?
Yeah, sure. The first one is harmful algorithms. We've seen that through TikTok and other examples. And the second one is tying into your contention of perception, and we are comparing it with the reality.
Thank you. And then do you use social media yourself?
I do.
Have you gone down a far right rabbit hole?
Accidentally, I have, because that's just how the algorithm worked. So I know what QAnon is. I know what flat Earth is. I know that birds aren't real.
Okay, so you're saying birds are not real?
No, I'm saying that I'm only aware of this because of the algorithm.
Okay, and did you believe it when you saw it?
I didn't.
You did not. You think that you can look at media and know whether it's fake or real news?
I find it very hard since I have never gotten social media training in my life, and maybe there are similar people in the audience who have the same problem. So I do find it very, very hard to believe what's right and wrong.
Thank you. That is all the time we have. All right, so I'm going to give a quick 4-minute speech, just going over everything that's happened so far in the debate and explain why you should prefer the affirmative. All right, so starting off, first I'm going to go over the negations case before going ahead and moving on into what the affirmative has said and my opponent's attacks on that. First, to go over the negations case. First, with our first contention of harmful algorithms, my opponent discusses how there's algorithms leading to people going down a far-right rabbit hole. And this is something which is unavoidable in all on social media. My opponent even states that they themselves have gone down a far-right rabbit hole. But as you can hear in the cross-examination, my opponent is not going to stay with that stance of being on the far right and having discriminatory views. Instead, people are able to use critical analysis on what they see. Additionally, the argument of it being a far-right rabbit hole is something which is not unique to social media. This is something we can also see on sites such as CNN and Fox News. While it may be right or left, political polarization is something existing throughout our culture and is not something which my opponent has clearly shown is unique to having social media. My opponent does not discuss traditional news sites along with social media. My opponent's case in this contention just discusses social media, which ignores the other options out there. To say that we should just look at what social media has on it and judge everything else by that lens is silly. When looking at the affirmative case instead, you can see we're comparing traditional news to social media and seeing which is better. And from that, you should be preferring the fact that social media on balance is promoting democracy more than the other options we have. By encouraging social media use, we are removing this polarization being as potent. On my opponent's second contention of discussing perception versus reality, my opponent in this contention's tagline admits that people do perceive social media as better. If we are looking at this through a lens of saying democracy is good, then maybe we should also listen to the fact that people do think social media is better for democracy. If we're saying democracy is a good thing, then maybe we should also be saying that my opponent admitting that most people think it is means that it will be. Additionally, in this, my opponent discusses how profit is all that companies are going for, and in this lens, they're going to be ignoring these democratic values. However, when you are choosing what to look at, you're going to be keeping in mind what is best for these democratic values. You don't just say, what's the news site in which is most convenient? You also say, what is accurate? And when looking for that accurate news site, the answer is going to be social media. When companies fail to provide this on social media sites, then they are not able to be as successful. My opponent mentions how there's not moderation on sites, but on sites such as X, there is moderation through things such as community notes, which show when there is incorrect information shown, something my opponent does not discuss. To go over my opponent's attacks on the affirmative's case, with the first contention of promoting democracy, my opponent discusses how there is more exposure to hate through these sites than you would have on traditional news sites, and how this is something which is going to be harmful for promoting democracy by having these views. However, I'd like to say my opponent does not show a comparison to traditional news sites. So despite my opponent saying this in refutation, it does not make it true. Traditional news sites do have more of a bias than is shown in social media on average. When we're looking at this on balance of social media promoting democratic values, we can see that it is doing so. As for the second contention of less gatekeeping, more girl bossing, my opponent talks about how it's less gatekeeping for the rich, but not regular class people, because you can just buy a social media site and have the loudest voice. However, this is something which is again, better than other places. With traditional news sites, you would have to buy an entire channel to broadcast what you want, or at least convince them to let you speak. If I want to post something on Twitter or X, then I can just go out and do that. If I want to upload information to Facebook, then I can do that. This allows for self-advocacy you cannot see other places. This means that when we're looking for where you can advocate for yourself, social media is the answer. And this self-advocacy is key when we're looking at democracy. Being able to have your voice heard and not just the voice of those of the rich and powerful is important and something which social media benefits. As for the third contention of exposure, this is something my opponent does not say a lot on again, so I'd like to explain why this is important. Social media shows you outside views so that you can compare it to the status quo, to outside voices, and see whether or not what you are experiencing is normal or not. This allows people to aid these democratic values of things such as freedom and respect for diversity by seeing these outside views and knowing what can change.
Hello, everyone. Can we all hear me? Okay. This is my first and only time speaking, but I would love to thank everybody for being here, even if you're just here for extra credit. Hey, I am too, but So the purpose of this speech is to discuss the attacks that the affirmation just made on the negation case, rebuilding it and showing everybody, all of you, some final voting issues for why you should be voting with the negation side of the argument or texting B. So let's just go over the attacks made on our case. In our first contention of harmful algorithms, the affirmation is saying that just because you can be led down a far right rabbit hole does not mean you're going to stay with this stance. I believe that everybody who is in this debate today is privileged enough to have access to higher education. Not everybody has the funds to do so. We have access to the tools that give us a higher level of critical thinking. To be able to discern the truth from the false. There are people who actually believe that the earth is flat. It is easier to fall into these holes of misinformation than you are led to believe. Our mind is not as strong as we think it is. I could argue that I am very smart, but I am way less smart than my brain wants me to think I am. So let's go on to the attacks made on our second contention of perception versus reality. So the affirmation is arguing that because we say there is a perception of social media promoting democracy, that we agree with their side of the argument. This is false. The affirmation is misconstruing our argument because we are trying to say that the appearance of pro-democratic values does not mean they work to promote them. We can very clearly see that social media companies hold profit above all else. In fact, there was a report done by the Senate Homeland Security Committee finding that social media companies prioritize profit over regulating harmful content because harmful, hateful content promotes engagement. When people are angry, they want to engage more. When we can see this hate and engagement, people will engage more with content, thus making these companies more money. Oops, geez, got a little bit close to the mic there. So really what we're trying to say is that just because social media says it's promoting democratic values does not mean it is actually doing so in its actions. Just because they say Happy Pride Month doesn't mean they actually support queer people. This just means that they want to have that brand advantage of rainbow washing so then they can get queer dollars or other marginalized groups of people. At the end of the day, the shareholders care about what makes them the most amount of money. And if that group just happens to be queer people or people of color or conservatives, they will bend to that group's will. So let's go over some final ideas of why you should be confident in your vote for the negation or B. So our first voter is the promotion of radicalization. We discussed this in our first contention, this idea that social media promotes online echo chambers that further divide us. Democracy is about bringing people together. And if we cannot agree on what is the truth, what is democracy? Democracy is about bringing everyone together so we can have everybody can have one thing in common, right to a vote in a free and fair election. And when social media is promoting this content that radicalizes us and divides us further and further, that means we are not being democratic. So when platforms like TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram promote misinformation to its user base, that means it is dividing us further. Let's go on to our second voter of the illusion of choice. This is mostly about our second contention, perception versus reality. Social media companies are giving you an illusion of choice. It is making you think you are choosing what you are viewing in their content, when in reality, it is much more filtered than you think it is. In fact, the TikTok algorithm has historically pushed down and not allowed people of color and queer users to have their content be seen on the For You page. So if you are a conventionally attractive white man on TikTok, you are more likely to have your content pushed to the front of the algorithm because that is what serves TikTok the most. That's how they make the most money. So because of this illusion of choice, you are being led to believe that you have this freedom when in reality you don't. TikTok is less free than the affirmation is claiming it is and really other social media companies as well, because of this idea that you are able to make a choice when in reality you are going through two doorways that lead to the same place. Let's go on to our final voter of the preponderance of evidence. So this was the weighing mechanism proposed by the affirmation at the beginning of the round.
Audience, I task you with weighing the preponderance of the evidence, which means the quality and the quantity of today's evidence provided by both sides of the argument. And we have clearly seen that the negation has won victorious. We can see through our sources from NPR, Media Matters, EPG Data Science, the National Library of Medicine, and NBC News that social media does not promote democratic values. Our burden to uphold is to show that social media does not promote democratic values because of their algorithms and motive. Democracy is about freedom. Democracy is about having this choice in order to choose what you do, who you talk to. But social media only further divides us. So if you agree with our side of the argument, please vote B. And thank you for listening to me.
All right, this is the last time that any of us will be speaking, so it's kind of our closing speech for today, and this is what you will hopefully be making your decision on. Starting my time now. Again, as this is my last time speaking, I again want to say thank you all for being here today. I think this has been a really fun debate. This speech is just going to be some voters and why you should all feel very confident texting in the letter A today. But first, I want to preface this with a few things. Our debate today is just about democracy. Social media might not be good for mental health. It might be promoting capitalism. It might be promoting hate, but it doesn't matter in this debate. I am not saying that social media is overall good, just that it promotes democracy, which is an undeniable fact, leading to my first voter for you all, why you should be voting yes, of freedom. Freedom of self-expression and advocacy is what social media offers without having to pay any money at all or being in a specific class. Yes, you can walk outside to talk to people, but you can't talk to your legislators. You can't show your art to the world, and you can't share your opinions across continents as easy and as free as you can with social media. Leading to my second voter for you all, diversity and equity. Social media provides information and representation for all. Where else can I learn about the culture of people from Africa for free? Where else can I directly talk to women in the Middle East for free? My opponents have shown no place you can do this for free, just that you can go outside to talk to people. That doesn't show anything here today. My third voter for you all is it promotes truths. We've seen that in today's debate, something that was uncontested by the negation today, that social media is the best option. It is a less biased source than traditional news with faster news available to all. Again, this has been uncontested, so my opponents agree with this, that it promotes truth the best out of all the options. Without social media, Pew Research shows that 30% of people would not be at all informed about their world and would not be able to engage in a genuine election. Literally, people would not be able to uphold democracy without social media in this day and age. Bringing me to my last voter of reality. On balance means that this debate is not just limited to the US like my opponent has said it is. And my opponent says that in some societies it harms or that in the US it isn't as good, but my opponent's evidence only shows that it is worse here. But on balance is objectively more likely to help democracy. Maybe TikTok's algorithm might be flawed in the US. Regardless, direct peer-reviewed evidence from the Journal of Policy Modeling has shown that more social media reach, as I said in my first speech, equals more democracy. We literally see that more social media equals a more democratic society. So obviously these flawed algorithms don't actually do as much harm as my opponent is suggesting. So you should vote A, all of you today, that on balance, social media does promote democratic values. Thank you.
All right, y'all, our precious time is ticking away. There's just a couple things that I want to say. For starters, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to give everyone an opportunity to vote again now that you've heard the evidence on both sides. Really good spirited debate. So same process, exact same number, exact same thing. What I'm asking is for everyone to, now that you've considered what came forward in our round of debate, if you want to vote by text LCC Smelt 294 to 37607. Follow that up with either voting A for yes or the affirmative, B for no or the negative, negative. C, if you're not sure, of course, you're also welcome to vote online. We'll be very interested to see the change from the beginning. I will give that update once we're all done, but maybe now would be a nice time for a little bit of Q&A. I will hand over the mic to Courtney. If you have questions, we would love to hear them as much as possible. I would love to not be the one answering these questions, so I'll defer a lot of this to our wonderful debaters.
Does anybody have a question? Then I will ask one. For the students who participated today, what got you interested in debate?
Okay, can everybody hear me? Awesome. What got me interested was it was 2021 and there were no other activities I could do at LCC. And I'm also a legacy member. My mom was on the team in 2000. So, yeah, I just thought it would be fun. And now here I am 3 years later, completely committed to it.
Someone who's not a legacy member?
Not yet. Not yet. Okay. I think I can break it down to also what got me into politics. It was the year of COVID, and I really needed to talk with like-minded young individuals. Maybe not always like-minded in terms of views. That's what was very important for me. So I just started to look around, where can I do that? And I found debate is like the only way to do that in this like friendly, respectful atmosphere. And I also wanted to improve my English since I only got here last August, and I found that this was the best way to do it overall. Yeah, great way.
Michael Ann?
Hello. So how long did you guys prep for this particular case?
I will give a preamble to this answer and say that in competition, competitors get 30 minutes of time to prepare. At every tournament, competitors have 4 or 5 guaranteed rounds. They might advance to elimination rounds. Every round will be a different topic, and every round they get 30 minutes of just like concentrated prep time. This round was a little bit different. I'll turn it over to the debaters to talk through our process.
Yeah, so I've actually been prepping this case since about Tuesday, and a lot of that prep has been cutting down how much information I put in it. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I started prepping for this case yesterday. I like spent an hour between classes doing it, and then a bit this morning of writing things on paper.
Yeah, just as the coach, I really like to highlight that a lot of the skills that our students are developing in this activity are limited prep. How do you make the most out of limited preparation time? How do you communicate your ideas? How do you organize your ideas when you don't have a lot of time to fully script out everything? So we did a practice run of this debate one time. It was last night at about 4 o'clock. And this was the second time, and it's just really cool to see it come together very quickly.
And speaking of limited time, it's probably time for us to move on to the results here.
Sure, sounds good. I do have some results. So I'll actually, you know what? While I'm still continuing to process the results, I think one thing that people might be wondering about is if you want to engage with our team more moving forward. There are a few things. If you whether you're a student or not a student, whoever's in the room, you're totally able to follow us on social media. We have presence on both Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, we're at Fighting Smelt Forensics. Facebook, just search something about Fighting Smelt, will be the ones. We really like to, just educate our community about what's going on throughout the season, share some, results at our tournaments. If you are an LCC student and you're interested in maybe joining us for a team practice or thinking about joining the team for next year, get in touch with me. I put my email up on the board. You can also find our club page on the LCC website. And we have open team practices on Mondays and Wednesdays from 3:30 to 5:30 over in RCA. We'd love to just have a conversation with people about, what it might look like to be part part of our team, especially if you know you're going to be back here at LCC next year. One last thing you can do if you want to be really extra and maybe financially support our team. We're currently engaged in a fundraiser campaign where we are selling some cool merch. The artist is in the room. We have a limited edition logo designed by one of our very favorite alums, Molly Mahoney, and it's available in a bunch of different flavors, t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts. So if you want to scan the QR code and support our fundraiser campaign, these will be sent out within the next month or so. Okay, let's talk results. I haven't put it all into my spreadsheet here, but I can say that before the debate, we had 45% of respondents saying yes, 30% saying no, 25% saying unsure. Let's focus on that last item first. We're down to only 15% of people being unsure. So that really excites me. I think that as the educator, I'm really happy to see that through the course of our debate, we drove more people to having an opinion about the thing. We end up with having 37% of people voting yes and 48% voting no, which means we have a resounding win for the negation today. But sincerely, really great debate. I really enjoyed every moment of it. I hope you all did too. In the interest of time, let's be done. I'll turn it back over to Courtney.
So thank you all for joining us, and thank you to the Fighting Smelt for leading us through this wonderful example of what you do. Please come back again next week where we continue our series on technology and change. Thank you all.